Blackbeard, President Kennedy, and Mr. Rogers are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is November 22nd, 2021. It is the 326th day of the year. There are 39 days left in this year. It's the 47th Monday in the 48th week and the 62nd day of fall. There's 29 days until winter. There are 3 days till Thanksgiving. Today is National Cranberry Relish Day. Cranberry relish is believed to have originated somewhere in New England during the early 1900s. Cranberry relish is a traditional part of many families' Thanksgiving dinners. For me, it's just always been that purple crap in the middle of the Thanksgiving table that I don't eat. All right, let's see what else November 22nd has given us. 1718, Royal Navy Lieutenant Robert Maynard attacks and boards the vessel belonging to Blackbeard, also known as Edward Teach. This happens off the coast of North Carolina. The casualties on both sides include Maynard's first officer, Mr. Hyde, and Teach himself. Blackbeard died here. Not a lot is known about Blackbeard or Edward Teach. Some people actually think his name was Edward Thatch. And when he died, they're not even sure how old he was. Somewhere between 35 and 40, they figure. He was probably born around 1680. There's a whole bunch that goes into this guy's story, and I'd like to get into it, but I think there's something more important for our deep dive today. 1935, the China Clipper inaugurates the first commercial trans-Pacific air service connecting Alameda, California to Manila. 1942, World War II, the Battle of Stalingrad. General Friedrich Paulus sends a telegram to Adolf Hitler saying that the German Sixth Army is completely surrounded. This was a bad situation for the German army. They really bit off more than they could chew. And it wasn't as much the Russian military, it was the winter. That was the big downfall to the German occupation of Stalingrad. In the end, 91,000 German soldiers surrendered. Only 6,000 returned home. 1963, U.S. President John F. Kennedy is assassinated and Texas Governor John Connally is seriously wounded by Lee Harvey Oswald, who also killed Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit after fleeing the scene. U.S. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson is sworn in as the 36th President of the United States afterwards. Now, everyone knows John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, and by most accounts, he was a pretty good president. I mean, his average approval rating was 70.1. That's throughout his 3 years he was the president. By comparison, since 1938, the average for all presidents is 53. So most Americans felt he was a pretty good president. Very popular. He had to deal with the Cold War at its peak, Cuban Missile Crisis, all that nonsense, and he was still extremely popular. Nobody talks about that. All they talk about are the conspiracies surrounding his death. You could talk to almost any person in the United States, and they're going to know more about the conspiracies than they know about any of his achievements. Most people don't even know he was a senator for a while. You know, you don't have to like Kennedy for any reason. I mean, if you're old enough to remember back when he was in office, which not many of us are of that age where we remember that, but he was an American president who was assassinated on the streets of an American city, and all people talk about is that. How he got assassinated, who did it, who didn't do it, what are the big conspiracies with it. Even just recently, those QAnon people went to Dealey Plaza where he was assassinated and held some rally because they thought John F. Kennedy Jr. was still alive and he was going to show up there. Come on! President Kennedy, like I said, was a senator. He was also in World War II, was marooned on an island after his PT boat was hit by a Japanese destroyer. He swam from different islands to try and find fresh water and food for the surviving crew members of his boat. Before the Senate, he was in the House of Representatives from 1947 to 1953. Was he a perfect president? No, nobody is. You'll never find a perfect president. No matter what you do, half the population's gonna hate it and half's gonna love it. And they all have their things where they drop the ball. His was the Bay of Pigs. Anyway, my advice is do a little reading on President Kennedy and his life and the things he did. And next time, if you ever have the chance, the conversation comes up about the conspiracy theories, maybe enlighten some people on his accomplishments and how he was a very popular president. 1975. Juan Carlos is declared the King of Spain following the death of Francisco Franco. 1977, British Airways inaugurates a regular London to New York supersonic Concorde service. 1988, in Palmdale, California, the first prototype of the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber is revealed. You know what's funny is we all knew about the stealth bomber. Nobody knew about the stealth fighter. When we invaded Panama, that was the first time they'd used the stealth fighter. Nobody knew what it was. And it was flying around. And I don't know if it's true because I looked it up and I didn't find much of it. But apparently some of the Marines were firing at it because they didn't know what it was. Who knows? That's one of those stories that gets passed around Army barracks or Marine barracks or whatever. I'd always heard that. I never saw any real documentation on it. Movies released on November 22nd, 2019, we got A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. This was such a good movie. It's a biopic movie about the real-life friendship between Fred Rogers and Tom Juno, who was a writer for Esquire magazine. The name of the article was Can You Say Hero? This was a great movie. I was not a big Mr. Rogers fan when I was a kid. As I got older and learned more about the man, Fred Rogers, I love Mr. Rogers. He's a great human being. He's sort of the dude we should all try and be. If you ever get a chance, watch that movie. There was a second one that was a documentary. Actually, the movie A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. It was the second film about Mr. Rogers to come out following his passing. The first one was that documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor? But if you ever get a chance, watch either one of them. They're both great. Tom Hanks plays a great part in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Born on November 22nd, today we get a twofer, kind of because they've both been in movies together recently. 1967, Mark Ruffalo was born. 1984, Scarlett Johansson. She's played a bunch of things, but she played the Black Widow in the Avengers movies, and Mark Ruffalo played the Incredible Hulk, or Bruce Banner that turns into the Incredible Hulk. One of my favorite movies Scarlett Johansson's ever been in that nobody really ever saw was We Bought a Zoo with Matt Damon. Great movie. And as far as Mark Ruffalo goes, one of his best movies, again, that nobody really ever saw, was in 2005, alongside Reese Witherspoon, was called Just Like Heaven. Great movie. Died on November 22nd, 1963, we lost C.S. Lewis, Irish-born author who became known for his Chronicles of Narnia books, which center upon a group of English children who venture into a fantasy world by way of a magical wardrobe, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Before he became a writer, he went to Oxford University and graduated with honors. He and his good friend, J.R.R. Tolkien, both ended up writing amazingly successful fantasy novels. If you don't know, J.R.R. Tolkien is the guy who did Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. C.S. Lewis married American author Joy Davidman Gresham in 1956. She died 4 years later, and he raised her two sons she had in a previous marriage. Sadly, he died 3 years after that. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a productive day, be nice to each other.